Thanks, Max, for the introduction. So I will be talking about automating threat hunting on the dark web and the things that surrounds it. A little about me. My name is Apur Singh Gautam. I am a security researcher. I started into threat intel and hunting 2 years back. Currently, I'm doing my master's in cybersecurity from Georgia Tech. This summer, I was a research intern at ICSI, where I did research in threat intelligence towards dark web side. Some of my hobbies include gaming, hiking. I started into lockpicking recently, and I've been enjoying it. I play a lot of Rainbow Six Siege. I do love contributing to the security community. I'm involved with some of the communities like Cybrary, Station X, and some of the local security meetup groups too. Today we will be talking about what dark web is, how do you access dark web, what are the different methods to hunt on the dark web. So we'll talk about tool-based methods, what tools you can use, and the human element. Then we'll talk about one example of how you can automate this whole tool-based dark web hunting method, and then we'll talk about the overall picture. So it means how you start basically how an organization starts targeting data, getting data, analyzing it, and creating reports. And then we'll talk a little about operational security and why it is important to maintain OPSEC while doing dark web hunting stuff. So starting with the introduction, I'm sure you must have seen this image a lot of time on the internet. So basically there are three parts to the web, that's surface web, deep web, and the dark web. Surface web, these are all the sites that are indexed by the search engines. So these are sites that you can directly search on Google or Bing or any other search engines. Deep web, this includes all the sites that are behind some kind of login system or some kind of system that you cannot directly access from Google or from any other search engine. So this can include everything from either your college database where you go log in and check your results, to your server, either you have hosted Google server or DigitalOcean server, and so on. Coming to the dark web, which we will talk mostly in this talk, is so dark web is a part of the web where you need some kind of special software to access. And so the sites on dark web, these are all marketplaces and dump shops or forums where people where different users or actors, they go talk about different stuffs that we'll talk about later on. So going a little deep into dark web, so basically there are different there are more than there are different organizations that offer their dark web systems. So some of them are Tor, I2P, ZeroNet, Freenet, etc. We will be talking about Tor because that's the majority of the people use Tor. So basic idea behind it is it's a kind of an anonymization system. So your traffic goes through several routes before reaching the destination. So it is hard, I would not say impossible, but it is hard to determine who is accessing what. And the basic analogy, so Tor, the full form is the onion router. So the basic analogy of onion is the packets are encrypted in several layers, and it opens one by one when it goes through different nodes. So that is why it is difficult to determine who is accessing what. And as you can see in the image where you see a URL, so basically the URLs, the URL of dark web or of Tor specifically, it is it is alphanumeric, and for Tor specifically, it's either 16 character or 56 character, and it depends on the cryptographic algorithm used behind it. So moving on, there are many misconceptions about Tor or dark web specifically. The first one is people think it's really big, like it's vast part of the web. But if you compare it to the clear web, the dark web is like if you compare the websites on the clear web and the dark web, then there are sites on the dark web that are not up all the time, but on clear web obviously it is up 24/7. So if we compare about the uptime and the availability, the dark web sites are really less. The second thing, so whenever you talk to people who don't know about dark web or are not well versed with dark web, they think that it's place only for cyber criminals. Yes, cyber criminals are there, different actors are there on the dark web, but it is also place for good people like activist or journalist who wants to just go on the dark web and talk whatever they want without getting judged or without getting pried on. That's why there are different sites like Facebook, NY Times, and other sites that have their dark web onion counterparts on Tor. The third thing is people think it's illegal to access dark web. That's not the case. Obviously, your ISP or your country, whatever the ISP you are using, that they might block dark web nodes, Tor nodes, but it's not illegal to access dark web. You can access it using some VPN or SOCKS, but it is illegal to indulge in some kind of illicit activities or some kind of trading of drugs, weapons, exploit, etc. So moving on, there are different types of sites that you can. So as a researcher, you focus on different types of sites, and based on your organization's threat model, you focus on particular sites that you want to focus on or you want to get something out of it. So either you can focus on general forums or general markets, to credit card forums, dump shops. So for example, if you are a bank, you would want to focus on credit card shops or dump shops where different credit cards are being dumped, or you can focus on insider threat forums, and so on. These are some of the site examples that I took from Wiki, one of the Onion Wiki sites. There are a lot more forums and dump shops on dark web, and this is an example of how much money or how much it takes for a product to be sold on the dark web. So as you can see, for some of the things you can get it easily. So suppose you can get a SSN with $1, or you can get a credit card with 20 plus dollar. So this I mean, the point of showing this is to let you know that it is easy to get many things on the dark web, and that's why researching on the dark web is really important, because if you do it correctly, you can get to know about these things beforehand. I'm sure you must have seen news about different several thousand Zoom accounts being sold on the dark web, or several thousand Facebook accounts or Facebook user profiles being sold on the dark web. So this is the form. This is several listings from several forums, and this is the way actors sell different products, and someone can go on these forums and buy stuffs. This is just one example of how much it costs, like average cost of one account for different services, and with bank obviously ranking higher. And this is another example of brute forcing tools being sold on the dark web. So coming to the part where we talk about what is hunting, why do you hunt on the dark web, what do you gain from hunting on the dark web, and what are you losing if you are not hunting on the dark web. So starting with what is threat hunting. So basically it's a practice of proactively hunting for cyber threats. And by proactively, I means you hunt for threats before it even happens, or you hunt for tactics, techniques, or procedures for the attacks before the attack even happens. So this includes everything from looking through logs, looking through IOCs, looking through text-based data that we do most of the time while getting dark web data. And so there's nothing concrete about this process. You don't know what you are looking for. You're searching for the unknown. So most of the things are hypothesis based. So you take one use case, you search for that, and then you take another use case and do it in an iterative manner. And for the dark web specifically, we are looking for most of the text-based data. So we use some kind of analytics or machine learning or deep learning, NLP, or any other analytic method to analyze that data. So why threat hunting on the dark web is important? So like I told you before, there are different forums, marketplaces, dump shops on the dark web where actors, they sell their products, they sell different exploits, they sell different databases, they sell different data sets of different companies, and they talk about new attacks, they talk about new TTPs. So if you are researching correctly on the dark web, or if you are monitoring dark web correctly, then you can get to know about these new TTPs that the actors are talking about this new attacks or new database exploits that new exploits that they are selling, or if for example, if an organization breached and someone is selling data of that organization, so the first place an actor sells data is on the dark web, and then it comes to the clear web or surface web. So if you are researching correctly on the dark web, then you can get to know about these data breaches beforehand. And if you are the company that has been breached, then you can reduce some risks and some of the impacts. So the second thing that I would like to talk about are the impacts. So if we are not researching on the dark web, then suppose if you are researching on the dark web and you get to know about the data breach or the data that is being sold of your organization on the dark web beforehand, then you can reduce some of the impacts, like your revenue loss or legal penalties that comes with it. So these are the impacts that you can reduce, and in turn reduce risks to your organization. So I will show you some of the examples, some of the recent examples. They are within 3 to 4 months that actors are selling different things on the dark web. So this is just an example of remote code execution exploit of an Australian bank that an actor is selling on the dark web. This is another example of a Pastebin related site where an actor is talking about a vulnerability in US based hospital. And the last one is from a Russian forum. So an actor is selling a RDP credential to a US hospital. So the point of this is, if you monitor dark web and if you get to know about these things beforehand, and if you are a hospital in US, suppose, so you can go and check for different vulnerabilities. In this case, you can check for RDP vulnerabilities that may be there in your organization or in your hospital. So you can remove that, you can reduce the risk, you can patch it. So that's why researching on the dark web is really important. And on the similar hand, you can get to know about new TTPs. You can keep up with the latest trends of the attacks. You can keep up with the latest idea of attacks from the actors, or the actors are, what the actors are talking about. And you can, if you know about the TTPs, you can prepare your SOCs or incident responders to deal with it if or when the attack happens, and in turn reduce the risk to your organization. So moving on, talking about different methods that you can hunt on the dark web, we'll talk about some tool-based methods that you can use to hunt on the dark web, and then we will talk about the human element in it. So starting with tools, so there are a lot of tools on the dark web. There are a lot of tools that you can use to get data from the dark web. These are some of the tools. So basically, you would want to get data from the dark web automatically, or you would want to automate it, and you would want to pay less attention to it, because you would want to analyze the rather spend your time analyzing the data than getting the data. So that's why these tools you can use to automate your data gathering. So starting with Scrapy is a Python web crawling framework that has multi-threading capability inbuilt. We'll talk about multi-threading capability, why it is important later on. Second is Tor. Obviously, if you want to access Tor, then you need Tor to install. OnionScan is another great tool that you would we use to determine relationship between different Onion websites and whether the website is up or not. Before going to Privoxy, so basically you would want to access Tor on some kind of SOCKS proxy or VPN. The first point is to have that added layer of encryption. Not in case of SOCKS proxy, but in case of VPN. But in case of SOCKS proxy, also added layer of protection. And the second point is there might be your ISP might block Tor nodes which are public. So you might want to use SOCKS proxy. So there are different tools that you can use, like Privoxy, TSOCKS, Polypo, and I've been using Privoxy. You can use any other tool to route your Tor proxy, to route your Tor through SOCKS proxy. Then coming to Elastic. So basically, you use some kind of database to store data on the dark web, and majority of the people, they use Elasticsearch because of the Kibana support, and it makes searching really easy in Kibana. So you can use any other database, either use MongoDB and then put data in Elastic, or you can use directly Elastic. Redis. So Redis is basically a in-memory database that is used for cache purpose. So we'll talk about why we are using Redis in this case. Moving on, going little deep into Scrapy, because that's our main focus, or that's our main tool to use to hunt from the dark web. So let me talk you through the steps that's I mean how Scrapy works basically. So think of all the things you see here are as different Python program. So Spider is a Python program, engine, scheduler, downloader, pipeline, and middleware. These are all Python programs. And so starting with Spider, because that's where your program starts from. So Spider, you give your onion URL, the request goes through engine, and the engine is a Python program that manages the whole Scrapy. So engine gives it to the scheduler. Now scheduler is the part where your multi-threading concept comes in. So you can scheduler schedules each request and gives it to different threads, and you can tune these threads either from 8 to 32 or 64, I think. Then scheduler, it gives it to the middleware. Now middleware is the part where you have your login code and your proxy code. So by login code, I mean let's first talk about proxy code. So by proxy code, I mean you have your Tor IP and you have your privacy IP in this part, so that the request or your traffic goes through that. Coming to the login part, so majority of the websites on Tor or on dark web, they need some kind of login access, or you need to have some kind of account. So first you go there, register your account, and then you take your login credential or you take your cookies and put in middleware. And another thing is CAPTCHA. So there are different CAPTCHA. I mean, majority of the website, they use CAPTCHA, and most of it are text-based CAPTCHA that can be bypassed easily. So you either you use some kind of OCR code, or you use some kind of third-party websites like anti-CAPTCHA or death by CAPTCHA. So you put that code in middleware so that the request goes through that, logs in, and gets you to the forum. Now downloader, it just simply downloads the HTML page and then sends it back to the Spider. Now you have the HTML page. You don't need the full HTML. You obviously you would want some elements from it. So you take those elements and then you put that into items. Items in Scrapy, items is basically a variable where you put, or you can think of it as a dictionary or list where you put all the HTML elements or data that you got from the HTML page, and then you send it to an item pipeline where you have your database, either Elastic or any other database, or you can simultaneously dump it into JSON form or any other form or format. So this is basically how Scrapy works, and why it is important to use Scrapy while hunting for the data, because uh, it keeps like it reduces your data gathering time very much, and you can focus on other things. Moving to the human element that I was talking about. So basically human intelligence, or I mean it's the process of intelligence where you use interpersonal contact rather than technical process or tool based system. So by interpersonal contact, I mean you go on forums and you talk to the actors, and you can think of it as a high-tech equivalent of an undercover FBI agent going to infiltrate criminal organization. And that is why this is not an easy task. Not everyone can do this because it takes a lot talking to the actor, preparing yourself accordingly, and not giving your operation up. And if done correctly, then you can get to know about new attack methods that the actors are talking about, or the organization that the actors are going to attack. You can know about the intent behind an attack that the actor performed. And I mean, obviously, this is not an easy task. It takes a lot of time making that perfect connection with the actors, and it can help your tool based, if done correctly, it can help your tool based system by whether you are getting new TTPs out of it, or whether you are doing post attack investigation. So by post attack investigation, I mean, for example, your company is breached or your organization is breached and someone is selling data on the dark web. So majority of the case, actors or users on the dark web, they sell fake data. So you can activate your actor, and he can go on the dark web and see if he has that kind of relationship with the actor. He can ask whether the data is real or fake. So coming to the part of how you can automate your dark web hunting, or I will talk about one example of how you can automate this dark web hunting using tools. There are a lot of examples in this image itself. You can use different uh, process different times, or you can arrange it to use something else to get data from the dark web. Starting with links, so you would want forum links or dump shop links or marketplace links before starting your scraping, or before you starting your hunting. And another thing, you need some kind of socks proxy, because obviously you are going through socks. You are taking your Tor route through socks. So you can get these links and socks proxies easily through automated scripts. Then coming to the Scrapy setup, so Scrapy setup includes everything that needs you to start your Scrapy. So it includes you putting your login program, you putting your proxy program where you have your Tor URL or Tor IP or Privoxy IP. And by login program, again, I mean, you have to go. So there are some manual parts of to Scrapy setup, because you cannot automate everything. So you go to forums, or you go to because every forum has different HTML architecture. So you go to those forums, you look through the HTML architecture. Also, you go to the forum, you create account. You can create account using automated scripts, but you can also do it manually. So you create account, you get the cookies, you get the login credentials, and then you put into Scrapy, you tune your multi-threading threading part, and then you start Scrapy. Now the crawler, parser, analyzer, these all are parts of the Scrapy, except analyzer. So you can analyze data in Scrapy itself, or you can get the data out and then analyze it. So in this case, I'm analyzing data in Scrapy. So you crawl your data, and basically crawl is gets the HTML page. Parser, it parses the data, you get the HTML elements. And the analyzer is you analyze. We'll talk about analyzer a little. So there are two things: either you can store your data into Elasticsearch or into database directly and then analyze it. And then, or another thing is you dump your data into some kind of file format, in this case JSON format, and then you analyze, and then you put Elasticsearch into Elasticsearch. The point of analyzing data here is, as I told you, Scrapy is a multi-threading program, so it gets a lot of data in less amount of time. And for an organization, you don't need all the data that you are getting. So you need to cut down some data, you need to analyze that data, and only take those data that you want. So that's where your NLP processing or your machine learning or deep learning part comes into the place. And you analyze this. You first of all, you get some data, you train those NLP ML models, and then you put that model into place and get the data that you want based on your organization's threat model or requirements. And then you put into Elasticsearch, and then you do the Kibana search, and so on. And then it repeats the Scrapy. It gets the data, it keeps getting, you keep getting data into Elasticsearch. The purpose of using Redis here is you need some kind of cache, because again, Scrapy is multi-threading, so it might get you might get data that is duplicate. Obviously, Scrapy has duplicate filters, but what if your Scrapy breaks down in between and you have to restart it again? So you don't need, it will not apply that duplicate filter again if you are restarting it. So that's where cache-based database or in-memory database comes into the play. So you keep some kind of unique identifiers into Redis, and then you crawl the data accordingly, or you go to the website accordingly. So this is one example of how you can automate your dark web threat hunting. There are several other examples, and you can use anything to automate this. And in this case, I'm doing all these things on a DigitalOcean server. You can use either your hardware system, or you can use any cloud-based systems. Moving on to the overall picture. So this I will talk about how you start, basically how you do your threat modeling, how you determine what you want to access, and you perform hunting, you get the data, and then you make reports, and then you get feedback on it. So start talking about threat intelligence lifecycle. So these are just the steps you take to get data and analyze it and get some kind of intelligence out of it. And you can use this life cycle for any kind of data. So talking about using it for dark web data, so in the first step, that is direction, you figure out your you basically you do threat modeling of your organization. You figure out what your organization wants to focus on, what different forums or what different marketplaces you want to focus on the dark web. Then in the collection step, you basically start your Scrapy, you start collecting data. In processing step, you get your HTML element, you process it, you store it into database, or you dump it in some kind of file format. And then analysis step, we talked about using different analytical based mechanisms to analyze the data. And then in dissemination, you either put your data into, either you create reports, or you put into Kibana, or you put some kind of alerts related to that data, and then you get feedback from it. So going a little deep into this is how you started. So basically threat modeling. So threat modeling is basically you determine what assets or what critical assets you have in an organization. So you figure out what the attackers want, what attackers can attack on, and what you need to focus or what you need to protect in your organization. So basically these are all the things that are front facing, or what the attackers can attack. So this is where you determine which different forums or which different marketplaces you want to focus on. So for example, if you are a bank, then you would want to focus on dumb shops or credit card forums. So this is where you determine different forums, different credit card related forums or dumb shop forums that you want to focus on, and then you start with your getting or hunting for the data. Moving on, data collection. So there are different again, as I told you, you focus on different forums and different marketplaces. Another thing to note is you also focus on different surface web websites, because on combining all the surface web data and the dark web data, you get more and good intelligence out of it. And some of the websites you can focus on are Pastebin, Twitter, Reddit, and Telegram, because nowadays on Telegram, majority of the many actors are talking on Telegram too. So you gather data from both these things, and you can use Scrapy and the automated model that I talked about to get data from both these things, and from either clear web or dark web, and you get those data, and then you analyze those data. So talking about analysis, as I told you, these are all text-based data, so you need some kind of analytical processes like NLP, MLDL to analyze these data. So either you can do your social network analysis, where you analyze different actors on different forums, or you can do classification based analysis, where you classify different forums based on what they are, what goes on those forums. Or you can do different clustering of products from different forums if you are focusing on different forums. I will talk a little about MITRE ATT&CK here. So MITRE ATT&CK basically it's a knowledge base of TTPs based on real world observations, based on what actors use, which TTPs actors use till now. And so if you have your pipeline, if you have your data gathering pipeline from a long time, then you have that. And if you have that kind of rich data, then you can map those data into TTPs and into MITRE ATT&CK, and it gives really good reports out of it. So you can do this if you have that good amount of data. So moving to operational security, and so let's first talk about what is operational security. So operational security is basically the process or the steps you take to hide yourself online, or disassociate your online self from your real self. So it basically you do this to hide your operation or hide your personal information from the actors while monitoring dark web. You hide all those informations that can correlate back to you. So this can include anything from your email, phone, name, etc., or your company's information. And basically, at the end of the day, we are all humans, so we'll like to be seen knowledgeable, and this obviously leads to oversharing, bragging, etc. And that is why OPSEC is hard. It is not easy to always have OPSEC in mind, and it takes a lot to maintain OPSEC. So let's talk about few steps that you can take to maintain OPSEC while doing dark web monitoring. So obviously, the first step is whatever system you are using, either you are using lab or you are using some kind of cloud environment. Never store any personal information related to you or your organization on those systems. Again, another thing that I told you before is always use SOCs and preferably VPN to access dark web for that added layer of protection, and for that added layer of encryption in case of VPN. Another thing, so as I told you, this is a high-tech equivalent of an FBI agent going undercover. So he has some kind of persona, he has some kind of backstory. So you need to maintain that persona and backstory for different forums that you have. So you have different persona for different forums. And if you're doing this for a long period of time, then you might mix your personas because it gets into your mind. So you need to have extensive notes for it so that you don't mix those personas. The last thing you would want is to mix personas and give up your operation. And another thing to talk about is so suppose you are in US and you are accessing Russian forum. So it is best to change time zone to Russia, just for the added layer of peace of mind or added layer of protection, whatever you want to call it. And so that the actors don't judge, don't guess that you're not an actor or you're a researcher. And on the similar line, there are different forums with different languages. So Russian forum, German forum, Arabic forum. So you need to learn some kind of new language skills or slang skills while going into these forums. So these were some of the steps that you can these are some of the steps that you can take to maintain your OPSEC. There are a lot other steps, and you can read more about it. So that was it. We talked about a little about dark web, how you can access dark web. What do you mean by dark web? Basically, we talked about different forums and marketplaces. We talked about how an actor sells data on the dark web. What do you mean by threat hunting? Why are we performing threat hunting on the dark web? What are you gaining? What are you losing if you're not doing it? We talked about a tool, specifically Scrapy, because that's the important tool that you can use to automate all this stuff. We talked about human intelligence, and again, how you can automate. We talked about one example of automating this whole architecture. And we talked about threat intelligence lifecycle and how everything fits into one picture. And we talked a little about OPSEC and how you can use few steps to maintain your OPSEC. If you liked one thing from this talk, then I would highly suggest you to go back. And if you do not already do this, then first figure out your assets, figure out what you want to focus on, figure out the sites that you want to focus on based on your organization's requirement, create the hunting pipeline that I talked about, start scraping, start getting your data into Elasticsearch, and then try to search for your company's name or different products that your organization has in Kibana. If found, then try to analyze the results. By analyze the results, I mean try to figure out which forum that from on which forum that was being talked about, which particular actor talked about it, and what are the contents, like what are they talking about your organization. Do this on a monthly basis and report it, make report out of it, and discuss it through intelligence briefing. I'm sure you would get good results out of it. And if you do this regularly, you would get good results out of it. Obviously, dark web threat hunting is hard, but it's worth the effort. You get a lot out of it, because the data or the intelligence you get on the dark web, it is not like you cannot get it on the clear web or surface web. You should always keep operation security in mind, because that is one thing that that is the important thing, because you don't want actor to think that you are a researcher. you should, again, as I told you before, you should look at more than one resource, and from clear web and the dark web both, to get good intelligence out of it. And doing all these things, it takes a lot of resources, and you cannot do it alone. You need some kind of team to do it. And again, as I told you before, if you have been doing this for a long time, and if you have that good amount of data or rich data, then you can map the TTPs into MetaAttack and produce good reports out of it. These are some of the resources that you can look into if you want to know more about dark web hunting stuff or dark web monitoring stuff. These are the companies like Recorded Future Insight, Digital Shadows. They publish their blog papers and white papers regularly. So you can look into it if you want to know more about this. And with that, that was it for my talk. I hope you all like my presentation. If you have any question, you can ask me in Discord or hit me up later on Twitter or LinkedIn. Thank you.
Wow, that was fantastic. There was a lot of activity in the chat room on the talk. It was really well liked. So I guess if we've got a little bit of time left, that's a yeoman's effort getting through all that stuff though. So let me ask some questions that came in.
Yep.
One of them is, it seems there's a lot of places that you need to look, and even if companies are doing their own research, it seems like it seems like a lot of repetition. So you talked a little bit about automation after this question came in, but it said there's companies which you can subscribe to and say, let me know if you see anything about us. But what about small companies or ones with a tight budget? What might make more sense there?
So basically, I mean, I started this in a small company. It was a startup. So we used to only focus on those data that our requirement was. Like, I mean, we didn't subscribe to any outside data, like for example, Recorded Future or any other organization that sells these dark web stuff. So we didn't subscribe to that. We didn't have a team. Like, we had 3 to 4 people or 2 to 3 people starting with this stuff. So if you are a small company, then I think you can do it with only 2 people, the tool-based system, not the human intelligence stuff. You can get data with just 2 people that is related to your organization or the requirements that your organization has. So I think you can do it if you're a small company. You don't need that many people, or you don't need that big of a team to get data from the dark web.
All right, great, thanks. Another question that came in is around the access buffering that is for the dark web. So how do you automate stuff when you need kind of special access to places? Do you first have to formulate a trust with these criminal groups, or?
So basically, there are different. Some of the sites you need some kind of for some special forums, you need either you need to give some money, or you need to have some amount of posts before you can look at other posts. So for those forums, obviously you need to maintain access and then use that credential for your hunting or for your tool-based system. But for other forums, it is basically it's just you create an account, you create different accounts, and then you put that into your Scrapy pipeline. And about captcha system, so majority of the forums, they have text-based captcha that you can bypass. Nowadays, some of the forums, they have started using image-based captchas. So by image-based, I mean there will be a image of different animals, and then you have to figure out which animal it is being shown on the image. So that is little hard to bypass. And I think there are many research going on of utilizing deep learning systems to bypass those captchas.
Okay, so just the CAPTCHA problem all over again. Great. And then same times, there's some limitations, I imagine, with being able to automatically collect data, because you need to purchase it to know kind of which accounts are compromised. Is that the case?
I didn't get the question. So which accounts are
So
compromised?
I'll phrase the question how it was originally phrased, and that's
Okay.
how can you automate the collection of compromised customer accounts that are revealed only after you purchase the packet?
Oh, so basically you don't. So the idea of doing dark web hunting is not. I mean, obviously there are many actors. They sell the data and they don't show all the data, right? They show only parts of data. So the idea of doing dark web hunting is for you, for you as an organization to know that someone is selling your data on the dark web. So it's not getting access to the data. It's uh, starting with it's knowing how who is selling data and what kind of data they are selling. So they will include some suppose again talking about bank, so they will have some bin numbers that correlate to your bank, so you can know your some of the credit cards or debit cards are being sold on the dark web. So the point of that is for you to know that yes, you have been compromised and someone is selling some kind of data on your dark web. Then the second step comes like if you have that budget, then you go like get that data from the actor. It's the second process. It comes later on, but the first thing is for you to figure out if your data or if anything related to your organization is being talked on the dark web or not.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, this is the bread trail crumbs that you
Yeah.
then use your intelligence part to assemble
Yeah.
this into
Yeah.
action. Okay, thanks. Another question, do you get the links for dark web search from dark web search engines? Is it worth it to try to brute force Onion and EEP site or namespace, or are they just too large?
I don't think you can brute force because these are all so basically the URLs are all public keys. So yeah, I mean I've never heard of brute forcing the URLs to get URLs, but you can get the links from Google. Like many people they dump links on Reddit or Pastebin, or you
Okay.
can get the links from dark web search engines itself, like different wikis, or their search engines like Kilos, Recon. You can get the links from that.
Okay, great. And I think we got enough time for one last question before we take a needed break. With the defenders starting to popularize scraping from these dark web forums, are you seeing any interesting defenses being used to prevent this kind of research, kind of beyond the CAPTCHA that you mentioned before?
So yeah, like I told you, there are nowadays there are many forums. They are employing this. So you need some kind of post, or you need to submit some kind of money before accessing those high level good forums. So so for a company, if for example, if a company has not that budget, and if the company can only give sanction for one account, and if you have that one account and you start scraping, and if you don't set the what do you call the scraping, the amount of data you get from the from that particular forum, then they can block you. So if you lose that one particular account, then you have nothing. So that's the thing that comes into play when accessing those forums. Again, the same mechanism, the same anti-scraping mechanism, there have been from long time. So that hasn't changed. We have just started getting less amount of data in that particular time frame, just because it doesn't block us or it doesn't block our request. And yeah, I mean it's a constant battle between anti-scraping mechanism and scraping mechanism.
Right. Fantastic. Well, I thank you again for the talk. There's some great conversation happening in there where I think your input would be very well appreciated.
Yep.
So with that, I want to thank you again, and we're going to take a break for 15 minutes before the next talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.